Peace and love, family. How is everyone doing tonight? Thank you for joining us on another edition of the RAM Book Club, Resurgence of the African Mind, where we seek to liberate African minds by reading one unit of work at a time. Of course, you know, we are starting off with the Blueprint for Black Power, family. We have been pushing through since August. We are now on chapter 17. My name is Lily Lapoete Speaks. You can find me and the links to the show at www.lilylapoetespeaks.com. Click the Blueprint for Black Power thread, family, which is right up under the RAM tab. And then you click on the corresponding link. Last week, we did chapter 16. We did investing in and trading with African nations. We talked about Pan-African trade alliances, global policy, as local, the possibilities of African investment funds. And we also talked about international trade centers. This week, chapter 17, Empowerment Through Wealth. We're going to talk about the tradition of trade and self-help among African Americans, race and entrepreneurship, early African American investment in Africa, the case of Marcus Garvey, Blacks as immigrants, Black American communities as economic brothels, and much more, family. Once again, my name is Lily Lapoete Speaks. Thanks for joining us, and we're going to let the panel introduce themselves.
I would like to say Harambe, let's pull together, Abidi Fahode, African liberation, to everyone on the panel and brothers and sisters in the chat room and brothers and sisters who will be watching this video in the archives. My name is dr.maat.msu, legal name Dr. Deanna Bailey. I am a lecturer at Morgan State University. I teach wireless communications and digital communications for the School of Engineering. I'm also the co-founder of Ed Anime Productions and the executive producer of Meltrek, which is a hip-hop educational animated series that teaches our children history from our perspective. And you can just get that from edanimeproductions.com or simply just go to Google and type in Meltrek in the search engine, and the links to purchase the series will pop up. It's a pleasure to be here. Sister Alima, I'm so happy with, sis, chapter 17, like really, yes. You know, like really, you know, this book has about 868 pages, and we're half the way through it. That's right. I'm just proud, sis, and I love you so much. I want to say that publicly because you know, with you and I, when we make up our minds to do something, we do it. We don't just sit around and talk about it. And that's when right. You and I, we talked about this book, and we said, damn, it would be good if we just read it together. Well, look, let's start a book club and read all the works, and we did it, sis. Exactly. And so I just appreciate you and who you are and your commitment and your dedication to this book club and even your site. Sis. I love the fact that you build a beautiful site. Please, family, go out. Please support. We put these links in the chat room for a reason. Go to lilylapoetespeaks.com. When I say that this sister built a beautiful website for us to learn from and to get information from, it's a beautiful website. She has blogs on current events. She has a marketplace, and she's even opened the marketplace up for other people who are vendors and want to get their product out there. Then for Blueprint for Black Power, she created an outline for each chapter, you know, and this stuff takes time. Go there, subscribe to the page, lilylapoetespeaks.com, click the link and support the sister. I also wanted to say this, sis. I got a call from Sinetta a few days ago. And I can actually send you the link so you can check it out. He went live to talk about haters and all that in the community. And on his live stream, he called me up. And he was like, Doc, I didn't know that you all were going through Blueprint for Black Power, you know, chapter by chapter. He said that he went to YouTube and he just typed in Dr. Amos Wilson. And our link showed up. Like all of the stuff that we've been doing, it popped up. And he was just like, sis, why didn't you tell me? Because I could have been live streaming it on my platform, you know, every Sunday. He was just like, the next time you guys on the next book, because I told him, I said, you know, I could check with Sister Alima, but you know, I don't think she would have a problem with you live streaming it, you know, on your platform. We get more views and blah blah blah. And he was like, yeah, well, I don't want to do it in the middle of the book, you guys, you know, in the middle of the book. He said, but he said the next book, he said, I would love, you know, to live stream it on my platform. You know, if you guys, you know, would let me. And I told him, you know, I would have to talk to you, but I don't think he would see a problem with him live streaming the RAM Book Club sessions, his platform.
Not at all.
Yeah, but he said he loves the work that we're doing. And he was like, and then somebody in the chat room's like, oh man, they're really going in, you know, with the RAM Book Club. So people are watching and, you know, and people are looking. And so I just want to encourage us to keep up the good work because they love the panel. They love what we're doing. I get inbox messages all the time from folks who said they love this book club. So anyway, happy to be on the panel. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic.
Peace, family. Am I hold on. I got a delay. Y'all hearing a delay?
No, you good, sis. Go ahead.
Okay. Peace, family. My name is Camille Gaynor-Jones. I am honored to be here and I'll be a part of the RAM Book Club every Sunday. I'm learning so much, and it's awesome to be able to disseminate this type of information and share with everyone. Again, my name is Camille Gaynor-Jones. I'm a professional drummer. I'm a lecturer, also a teacher and a producer. I teach at Drummers Collective. I pop and gospel class as well. For the world with different artists and with my own projects, and you can find me at www.camillegaynorjones.com. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter as Real Drumette. And again, I'm honored to be here with everyone.
Next, one of the brothers.
Brothers, where you at?
Hello, how you doing? My name is Johnson Toe, Baltimore native. I'm here to enjoy this wonderful group, this wonderful panel. Glad to see everyone's here on this Sunday. I'm ready to dive into chapter 17. If you have missed anything, please go back and look at the other chapters that we have previewed, and we're ready to chop it up and get some dialogue going.
All right, next brother.
All right. Brother Impu Haru. Happy, excited to be a part of RAM, Resurgence of the African Mind. And I'm ready to dive in. Peace and Black Power, family. Let's get it. Let's get it.
Peace and Black Power, family. This is Brother Travis from Detroit. I'm an IT professional out here in Detroit. I also build websites. I do Facebook marketing. It's a powerful night tonight. I can feel it already. I'm just ready to get into the information and keep going. And this actual group is going to be transforming. So those who are listening, stay with us. Peace. Hotel.
Hotel. Poor Uncle Jasneb. Peace, love, Black Power. It's an honor and a privilege to be back here. I feel like a long lost child of the Resurgence of the African Mind Book Club. You know what I'm saying? I've been, here in spirit and been following the archives. Your brother now is born alive, do Now's Radio. Definitely honor and privilege to be here with the family once again, going through this great text, this great work. So I agree, like the brothers and sisters. I wanted to give a special shout out to Dr. Maat, Sister Lili Lafuete, and Sister Camille for holding it down for all of these weeks. You know what I mean? Like the strength and power that comes along with African women. That's right. We need to give respect and honor where it's due to the mothers of civilization who continue to sojourn. Even if some of us brothers might fall asleep at their posts, you understand? The work's still going to get done. So love and honor to you, sisters, for your tremendous amount of effort and dedication and consistency to the Resurgence of the African Mind through this Resurgence of the African Mind Book Club and so many of those other works. And another shout out to General Empress segment. I saw Dr. Maat and Sister Sci-Fi, the Three Wise Women, holding it down, and only the way that an African woman should, and laying out a foundation for our people in regards to that's going on and just making it plain. So love, honor, and light to y'all for that.
I appreciate your words, brother, man. I'm gonna get started at it. You kept me on the thing out for 6 hours. Man.
Oh no.
Sister Lee was saying, sis, you would have been out of there. You would have been
out me,
3 hours. And Sinetta said, well, wait a minute, Doc, let me ask you another question before you go. I said, okay, son.
It was a good episode, though.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was. I said, I'm going to try to hang with y'all a little side. None of them can go. They used to doing 4 and 5 hour live streams. I don't have it in me. After 2 hours, I'm kind of tapped out, you know?
Yeah, so, I got up and do it the next morning again while I was trading. It was inspirational. Made me some money. I was like, yeah, I need the old boom spirit over here. Stocks went up. Word. That's right.
I see Brother Everin is back. Brother Everin, please introduce yourself to the listening audience. Yes.
Eric, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I love Black people. I know. Friends with Bailey on Facebook. As I do shows on a platform called TRS. I deal with certain topics or solutions. The last I've done was it today is the 7th, so it was on the either 2nd or 3rd of January. Christian health. My friend Terrence Miller. I think possibly in the group of this podcast. One thing, give me 1 second. I'm gonna put a book to Doctor.
Brother, we're not looking at any books right now. We're going to concentrate on Blueprint for Black Power. At the end of our discussion, you can give us, some recommendations. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sister Alima. Let's go ahead and
that'll be at the end of the show.
Okay, cool. Chapter 17, Empowerment Through Wealth. The contemporary African-American community is heir to perhaps the longest tradition of commerce and entrepreneurialism of any group on earth. It is often not recalled that the most ancient African civilizations, such as those of Ethiopia and the Nile Valley, were founded on economic systems of trade and commerce. The kingdoms and empires of both Eastern and Western Africa were based on commercial enterprise, on monopolies and control over important economic material resources, centers of trade, and major trade routes. Basil Davidson notes in his book, A History of West Africa, that the specialness of that region rested in the interplay of 3 factors: metalworking, production for trade, and markets of exchange. He demonstrates that these trade activities and their reverberations along the distance trade routes across the Sahara fueled a socio-economic motor of economic change, which facilitated the notable political organization of Ghana and the Western Sudan, the fatherland of the bulk of African descendants in the New World. So Baba is just telling us here, the beginning couple paragraphs about ancient Africa and their history of how they established their wealth. Page 14, Old West Africa possessed 2 kinds of wealth. These were gold and ivory. So the basis of trade between Western Sudan and the Berbers of the Sahara lay in the exchange of salt for gold. But this was only the basis of trade. The total system was much wider. For the Saharan Berbers sold the goods they bought from the Western Sudan to the trades of North Africa, and the traders of North Africa sold them again to Europeans and Asians. European and Asian goods came down into West Africa by the same methods. Needless to say, there were other items of trade besides gold and salt. So, of course, we see that's how they developed their relationships with other nations, was through trade. They had the gold and ivory, and other nations had the salt and other goods that they traded in. So, we go on. The empire kingdoms were centered around the base on trade, production, distribution, and commercial activities of varieties. In the middle paragraph, he's just talking about Ghana, Mali, Songhai, just comparing that they too accumulated their wealth from trade. West Africa exported a wide range of goods to the outside world: gold, ivory, cotton, stuff, animal hides, leather, cola, peppercorn, and mutton. 417, Africans who were forcibly imported into the Americas were the heirs to long traditions of trade and commerce, craftsmanship, and entrepreneurship. That the business and social organizational skills, the inventive and entrepreneurial genius to which they were heirs, did not wither and die under the trauma of slavery is evidenced by the following examples of African-American commercial activity in revolutionary and antebellum America.
Sis, I gotta say, sis, that I love this section because, I think that Dr. Amos did a wonderful job and providing us with the history of Black entrepreneurship in America. This was one of the best I've seen. It's small, it's concise, but it's extremely very informative. And so he has a box, and I just want to show the family this. It's called Box 17-1 on page 417. Yeah, 417. Oh my gosh. Yeah, 418, 419. I think it goes to 420, where he talks about the African-American entrepreneurial milestones. I'm sorry. And when I read this, I said, I know he's going to mention Durham. I know he's going to mention Tulsa. And he did just that. And he also mentioned a few other people, sister, I've never heard of, who were instrumental in establishing businesses in our communities.
Exactly.
Sis, how do you want to do this, sis? Do you want to read bullet by bullet? Do you want to just, I think it's very powerful, and a lot of people don't have this history. So do you guys want to take turns reading bullets? You got 9 of us on the panel. So I think that we've done fairly quick.
That's it. That's it. Something that if we could, it was
Sis,
so
do you
much,
want to start?
even in the earlier pages, that Sister Lima just read. I mean, it definitely stressed. Ancestor definitely put some good points in from page 416 and 417. Just it based off the history of what exactly was done on the continent to produce trade throughout the world. That's a wonderful point. But then in page 417, just before we got to the chart on page 17.-1, it stressed how the race and entrepreneurship, and this is one part that that kind of caught my attention, because you see that they was trying to create a narrative that the Africans and Afro-Americans could not have the capacity to be entrepreneurs. No, based off the history that showed that we had craftsmanship in metals, wood, and ivory, and then they tried to stress or create the narrative that we didn't have, they call it the sociology of entrepreneurship. And I think around this time, and I think Bobby Wilson was trying to show in this section here that if we did not just have the ability to be craftsmen, but we also had the ability to be great entrepreneurs. It was just that we were put in a position that we were blocked from being entrepreneurs in history. So I just wanted to stress that. That's one of the points I wanted to stress from that page 416 to 417. The history of us showing that we had the ability. You see it all in the beautiful artwork. And I even underlined they spoke poetry, Sister Lima. So not just the craftsmanship,
that's right,
but also the literature.
They wrote books, spoke poetry, composed music as well.
That's right. So it just want to show you that you got to watch, because the narrative of them saying that we're unable to be great business people were also implemented there. So just in that short period of time, it kind of really caught my attention there.
Absolutely.
Just to springboard off what my brother just said, in the first sentence on page 415, he said, we're heir to perhaps the longest tradition of commerce in entrepreneurialism. That's awesome.
That's right.
Oh man,
I agree, brother. Well, okay, sis, let's just 17-1. Everybody read 2 bullets a piece, and then I read the last 4 of them.
All right, so we want to read 2 bullets.
All right, we'll start with Sister Camille, then we'll work our way down to me.
All right.
Okay. Anthony Johnson was probably the first person of African descent to become an entrepreneur in the New World. Town, Virginia.
Oh.
First wholesaler, merchant, and settler of Chicago. Jean-Baptiste Disable was also a businessman and capitalist. As America began to take shape as one of the leading capitalist countries, Afro-Americans tried to carve out a business place for themselves?
Brother Chaos.
Everin, next two bullets, brother.
Read the next two bullets.
Yes, I'm here. Okay. 16. I'm trying to follow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're on the third one.
Third one.
417.
Okay. The Negro in the South.
No, we're on 417, the third bulletin.
Okay, so let me turn back.
Where it says Afro-Americans.
I see. All right. An entrepreneur's area of the business community. War, including merchandise, manufacturing, construction, trade, transportation of industries. Underscores wove into the fabric of the American look upon in totality as rival group. Want to continue?
Yeah, read the next one.
The reality of slavery, slaves, despite acquiring skills, could not become entrepreneurs. True sense of the word. Nevertheless, some degree of Afro-Americans' entrepreneurships documented and existed during testimony. Capitalism exists under the most in the late 1700s.
No, brother, we go on to the next person. Brother Knowledge Born. The next two bullets, brother, in the late 1700s.
In the late 1700s and the 1800s, African-American entrepreneurs were just simultaneously involved in almost every major industry during this time period. This was especially true in the North, where they employed occupations and formed an impressive and cohesive. The Negro in the South was not only proficient as a carpenter, blacksmith, shoemaker, baker, tailor, and cook, but as a result of almost 2.5 centuries of slavery, up to the outbreak of the Civil War, the knowledge of these skills were concentrated almost exclusively in the hands of the Negroes, free and slaves.
Dr. Maat?
Despite hardships presented by governmental restrictions and white racist social attitudes and practices, wherever there were free Afro-Americans, a business tradition was developed. I want to say that again. Wherever there were free Afro-Americans, a business tradition was developed. And I see why our ancestor italicized that.
Exactly.
Right.
1838, a pamphlet, and I want to get my hands on this pamphlet, so I have an asterisk right beside it. In 1838, a pamphlet, perhaps the first of its kind, was published entitled A Register of Trades of Colored People in the City of Philadelphia and Districts. It listed 656 persons engaged in 57 different occupations. The register also listed businesses which were independently run by women of African descent. And this is in
That's right.
This is in 1838. And our ancestors told us, even throughout slavery, even throughout the era of enslavement, we still had businesses.
Brother Impu?
During the 1700s and 1800s, African Americans dominated and controlled a number of business niches and figured significantly in other business areas. Many of the businesses were lucrative and many business persons made a fortune. A significantly large number or class of free Black artisans, grocers, barbers, caterers, hotel owners, coal dealers, tailors, blacksmiths, craftsmen, and professionals existed prior to the Civil War. In a number of places, those Blacks played a leading or dominant role in certain trades, and their numbers increased after the war.
Brother Tuola? You can't hear him.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
He's got his mic. His mic is muted.
No, his mic isn't muted at all.
Oh.
He said something's going on.
Oh, I see.
No, we can't hear you.
I'll read it if y'all want to keep on going.
Go ahead, brother.
Go back to
go ahead.
A number of Atlanta's most important contractors and real estate dealers were Black during the 1800s as well, past 1900s. In Charleston, South Carolina, the butcher trade and barbering were at one time dominated by Black entrepreneurs, were the backbone of shoemaking trade until after World War I, among the city's most prominent contractors.
Wow. Brother Tuola?
Still can't hear you. You want to go out, brother, and come back in?
Brother Travis?
Okay. Before the Civil War, African-American entrepreneur Tommy Laffan of New Orleans achieved considerate notoriety as a merchant, moneylender, and real estate dealer. Who, when he died in the 1880s, he left an estate worth $500,000. Wow, impressive. That's probably close to $1 billion.
Jeez,
100 in that time. Yeah. In the late 1800s, entrepreneur Wiley Jones not only generated a reputed fortune of some 200,000 through farming, horse trading, liquor selling, and transportation, but also through the ownership of a streetcar line in Pine Bluff, Arkansas.
Wow. When R.R. Church died in 1912 in Memphis, he had reportedly accumulated a fortune of over $1 million gained through speculation and investment in Memphis real estate, as well as investments in white-owned corporations. According to historian August Meyer, from whose work the 6 prior citations were drawn, there was a real burgeoning of Negro enterprise after 1890 and especially after 1900, though it was based more on the Negro market than were earlier enterprises. According to the National Negro Business League, the number of business enterprises had risen from 20,000 in 1900 to 40,000 in 1914. In that period, banks had risen from 4 to 51, undertakers from 450 to 1,000, drugstores from 250 to 695, retail merchants from 10,000 to 25,000. Perhaps the most celebrated of those newer enterprises was that of the millionaire Madam C.J. Walker, a St. Louis laundress who invented the first successful hair straightening process.
In addition to development of business enterprise during this early period, Americans displayed an active role in the area of inventions in the development during its early years. There are records which show that as early as 1789, Afro-Americans found it difficult to borrow money in order to establish business enterprises. Nevertheless, thrift were able to do so.
Sister Camille?
She finished. It's the next brother's turn.
Oh, okay.
What's his name? Evan? Brother Evan, you there?
Okay. In addition to development.
No, we're in order to generate capital, right?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
I got it. Capital, Black organizations, societies, assistance societies, secular and religious institutions. societies also form of insured members. In addition, society and because of the African Americans, there are lending. Before the Civil War, clients of the Afro-American business were whenever they are successful, tried to disrupt laws passed some that make their successful.
All right, brother Matt is going.
Go. I'm in my thing.
Brother Matt is going.
At the turn of the century,
Okay, go down.
commentators and scholars were as excited about Durham, North Carolina as they were today about Cuban American experience in Miami or the Korean American experience in New York City and Los Angeles. W.E.B. Du Bois noted after visiting Durham that there is much in the city, a group of 5,000 or more colored people whose social and economic development is perhaps more striking than that of any similar group in this nation.
I think it's me, sociologist E. Franklin Frazier, and complimenting the business acumen of Black Durham business, noted that as we read the lives of the men in Durham who have established the enterprises there, we find stories paralleling the most amazing accounts of the building of American fortunes. We find them beginning their careers with much formal education and practicing the virtues of the old middle class. These men have mastered the technique of modern business and acquired the spirit of modern enterprise. Durham began as a financial district as early as 1907. In many publications throughout America, it was called the Wall Street of Negro America. The strength of one of its larger firms, the Mechanics and Farmers Bank, is demonstrated by the fact that it helped most, if not all, the Afro-American businesses in Durham to survive the Great Depression, a feat which the great majority of American small businesses were unable to match. So Durham, North Carolina was still thriving during the Great Depression. Didn't know that. And their banks assisted the small businesses in making it through the Great Depression. So I didn't know that.
That's powerful.
Absolutely. I think it's on you, Brother Impu.
Okay. One observer wrote that, quote, a common feature of the Negro business interest of Durham is the fact that not one of their group organizations failed during the period of depression. Just as the Japanese were able to develop economic success in California at the turn of the century, Afro-Americans were able to do the same. Although other cities throughout the country were not as strong as Durham, Afro-Americans in other cities also developed a strong middle class, which was grounded in entrepreneurship and the professions. In cities throughout the country, entrepreneurship flourished in part because of the structure of racial discrimination. Wow.
So, I mean, that last line was powerful. In cities throughout the country, entrepreneurship flourished in part because of the structure of racial discrimination. So Black folks said, look, I'm being discriminated against. We got to do something. Let's build our own businesses, you know? And we got to get back to that mentality because we're still being discriminated against.
But we have the illusion of inclusion.
Right, sis. Right. And we think, and many of us believe that we live in a post-racial society because Obama became the president. So they say it's no more racism because Obama was president, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the next one?
Next two.
You know, the funny thing,
Brother Tuola.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right. Stories of successful business run by free Afro-Americans in both the North and South since the 1700s has been passed down through the decades. Drawing ideas from the experience of Afro-American business persons, Booker T. Washington sought to organize Black business nationally. Second point, in 1900, Booker T. Washington spearheaded the development of the National Negro Business League to encourage enterprise. The league was founded on certain fundamental assumptions, which were designed to, 1, generate high character, 2, develop racial respect, 3, develop economic stability, and 4, lay the economic groundwork for future generations. Okay.
Read the next one.
Okay.
Guys, we'll go ahead and close it out.
All right.
Yeah.
The last point on page 420. It was the economic experience of African Americans, the economic opportunities available to them as they organized to take advantage of them, and the organizational efforts of Booker T. Washington in this regard that inspired and attracted Marcus Garvey, the consummate advocate of Black self-help, to the U.S. That's on page 420, family.
All right, so the next section is about Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, you can go on YouTube, family. I don't think, Sister Alima, you let me know if we need to spend a lot of time on this. I mean, I definitely
don't think so, because I think everyone is extremely familiar with it. And if you're not, maybe you're still young, and you can definitely, there's really good documentaries available on it. You know, really good stories. You can go to the history archives. You can really find whatever you need to know. But if you're not familiar, you definitely should be get privy to Tulsa.
Absolutely. So in this section, Wilson, he's given us a description of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He calls it the Black Promised Land. And it was, you know, there was a main street that was called Greenwood Avenue in that particular area. And it had a lot of businesses. On page 424, he provides us with a chart that lists, you know, all of the businesses, all of the different establishments, the number of the types of professionals they had, service workers, skilled craftspersons, and semi-skilled workers. All right. It tells us on page 4.
I wanted to stress one thing on page 422. On page 22 on the top, I just wanted to put in context so we can understand that within this elite group, someone rumored to have assets and access of $100,000. I just want, you know, because you know I'm a big economic guy. I love economics. I love to see the state where we are now, but just want to put in context for the family that some people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, had a net worth of $100,000, and that's in 1921.
Right.
That would be $1,244,494.85 today.
Wow.
Just wanted to.
You said that would be
$1 million.
$1 million.
That'd be equivalent to $1 million.
It would be $1 million today from 1921 to today. And like I was just saying, that the net worth today of the African American on a median is less than $4,000. You know, and that I repeated before, 2053, the net worth would be 0. So just letting people know, from having our own business, cooperative economics, you know, we went from 1921 to today, almost down to 0. That's a point I wanted to make before we went on.
No, that was a hell of a point, brother Towola. Brother Everett, you wanted to add to?
Say, if you look at the network back then, and they talk about the network now, this is a strategy that our natural enemy, the result of the condition, to really understand new. And I know a lot of people back then started initiatives, and that they were able. I know a good percent of our people didn't want to go for that because of this they already had established. But the majority of people headed with it. to let you know there was still a mental illness to now. If you had net worth, just in that city alone, over 100, and they said now net worth of Europeans is what, 200? The average European?
355,000.
Okay, so imagine we were segregate now. We would be more flourished. No matter if we were in Oakland, it could be anywhere, in any state we would reside. $1 million each, if we continue the path. So when people talk about say that we can't attain that, is rubbish.
Yeah,
that is rubbish. That was they do the research on what we were doing back then now. But let's continue.
Good point, brother.
Yeah, that was a good point. Very good point. But
can I add something real quick?
I'll go ahead. I was born like, let me get in on this.
Come on,
just real quick.
No, you good.
One of my favorite bands, the Gap Band, was named after Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, one of the three major business districts in Tulsa. You know, they come from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Add that, and then I just wanted to draw a parallel. As we read at the, earlier on in the earlier chapters of that diagram, that famous diagram on page 34 of the book, our enemies had a head start since 1675. And we saw all of the concessions that was made, all of the laws that they passed, even locking us out of this whole entire process. But still, Bobby Amos Wilson still highlights all of these, economic achievements when we focused on ourselves, when we focused on our families. You see what I'm saying? And there's plenty of more, to add between 1700 and 1800.
Absolutely.
Many of our ancestors were still in bond serving. So not only were, Africans in America flourishing economically, but they were using that economics in a manner where which they were self-sustaining and not interdependent upon our enemies. A lot of brothers and sisters own property and things like that, and also help our ancestors that were in bond serving reach freedom. You see what I'm saying? So these things have to be interrelated into how we see each other, even all of the institutions that were built, along with the the economic strides that were made. We were helping brothers and sisters get free, and also teaching them, we were teaching our own. You see what I'm saying? So everything was interdependent upon how we saw ourselves, and that type of visionary attitude is what we need to see more of going forward. I just wanted to add that real quick.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Did anyone else want to add anything?
All right.
I just got back. I don't even know where I was.
Your brother and sister Camille been jumping in and out like hula hoops.
Right. So she wanted to add something before we moved on.
Yep, 423, all black towns in America.
Oh,
yeah, I wasn't.
I'm not good at it.
No, I wasn't right there.
You was talking to Sister Camille. Oops, my bad.
Yeah,
I'm good. I'm good, actually. I mean, I missed it. I just got in, so.
All right, I just want to highlight this chart, y'all, on page 424. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, man, they had bath parlors, billiard halls, 9 of them, cigars and tobacco, clothing, dry goods, rackets, secondhand, music, furniture, paints and oils, shoes. They had confectionaries, soft drinks, feed and grain, furnished rooms, boarding and rooming houses, garages, auto repair, and filling stations,
right,
groceries, meat markets, hotels, restaurants, theaters, undertakers. All right, they had a total of 108 establishments on Greenwood Avenue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And these establishments were Black owned and operated. They also had a lot of professionals in that district. They had dentists, they had they had druggists and medicine and manufacturers, jewelers, lawyers, nurses, photographers, physicians and surgeons, real estate, loans, and insurance agents, private detectives. They had a total of 33 of those folks. Service workers, they had barbers, cleaners, it says hatters, dryers, impressors, hairdressers, launderers, shoe shiners, 26 of those service workers, skilled craftspersons, bakers, blacksmiths, contractors, carpenters, builders, house and sign painters, dressmakers, milliners or milliners, plumbers, printers, yes, printers twice, shoemakers and shoe repairs, tailors, upholsters, a total of 24. And they had semi-skilled workers, expressmen and messengers, house movers and news dealers. All right. So this is what they had going on in that small district. You know, so now I see why they called that a little Africa. They basically had everything they needed in that one district.
Everything. And this is to point out that, remember, around this time, the government was giving away hundreds of thousands of acres of land to white sharecroppers. So to do this at this time, to say, hey, you know what? I know the government's not giving us something. Let's go ahead and start our own. I just want to make another point on how resilient this community was. Remember, hundreds of acres were given to white people while they just wanted to give us jobs. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, they said, you know what? Let's create our own. Let's own everything that we have. So that's just to give praise and make sure we give these guys this family ancestors honor for doing it at this time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Let's want to get into the all black towns, sis. All black towns in America. This was a very
so we get into this section and we learn about a lot of different towns, earlier developments, all black towns. More than 24 all black towns were founded in the late 1800s. Among the better known all black towns across the country was Cowalica, Alabama, Mound Bayou, Mississippi, and Boley, Oklahoma. Cowalica, Alabama was established about 1879 by William Benson. Benson found an industrial settlement populated primarily by farmers, landowners, and skilled craftsmen who would be able to minister their own and the needs of the entire community. His Dixie Industrial Company purchased large tracts of land, which he sold to the other members of the community. He built a roadway, and he also built a school, which is the Cowalica School, and it was produced in order to, it was designed to produce farmers and mechanics, as well as good husbands and housewives, which I thought that was cute. Mound Bayou was founded in 1887 by Isaiah T. Montgomery, a former slave and staunch defender against the disenfranchisement of Black Mississippians. He was a graduate of the University of Holly Springs, Mississippi. Mound's leading merchant founded a bank, a cottonseed oil mill, and a loan investment company after he moved in 1903. Boley was also among the earliest of some 25 all-black towns founded in 1898 in America. In 1914, Boley boasted of $150,000 school, cement sidewalks, attractive residences, a Masonic temple, electric power plant, and waterworks, and 82 business concerns, including a bank, 3 cotton gins, and a telephone system. The story of Tulsa is the story of Black American entrepreneurial triumph and tragedy, a story now almost forgotten in America. The entrepreneurial spirit of Black Tulsa, Durham, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Chicago, Kansas City, and many other pre-Great Depression Black main streets across the nation must be rediscovered and revived if the African American community is to realize its economic and political power. So I think Baba just wanted to drive home and really give us those examples to let us know that if we can do it in one of the most racial periods in history, and we managed to come together, even though it's interesting, the dynamic was different because it's like we knew we didn't have a choice. So now we've got all these options, and so it makes it harder for people to come together because when you give people options, it just, they don't know what to do. But Baba just really wanted to drive home these examples to let us know that yes, we have done it before. Yes, we do come from excellence, and yes, we can do it again.
Absolutely. Ashe.
Okay, early African American. Somebody want to add on?
This I was going to say, we can't talk about empowerment through wealth unless we discuss the Honorable Marcus Garvey. So I know you get ready.
Yes, indeed. I know they had to bring up Baba Garvey.
Yes.
So many in the African American community perceive and wish to relate to continental Africa in ways similar to the ways the European community perceived and related to America during its early history. Just as the Europeans saw America as a locale for immigratory resettlement as a trading and commercial partner, and as a providing opportunities for mutual profitable capital investments. Many African Americans perceive Africa as a place for the realization of similar possibilities relative to themselves. This perception on the part of African Americans has somewhat lengthy history. It's achieved its most dramatic expression in the Honorable Marcus Garvey's attempts to resettle African Americans in Liberia. In 1920, Marcus Garvey, as head of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA, set in motion to plan to colonize Liberia and to establish trade relations with that African nation, then founded as a locale for the resettlement of Black Americans in Africa under the guise of the United States government. Okay, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if we want to, I don't know how much you want to read, sis.
Yeah,
about,
I'm here.
Did you want to read all of it?
No, we don't have to get into that. I'm looking
I
at.
want to point out a few things that, of course, consciousness was race consciousness was very, very, it was very important. As Baba says, African consciousness was the hallmark of the Black liberation movement in general and nationalist movement during this period. So that was one of the things that everyone had in common. So it's like we're already all on the same page. And once you have that race consciousness, everything else kind of seems to fall into play. Because we got a lot of things that, a lot of differences that we see are people who don't want to be Black or don't understand who they are, but it's because they don't have a sense of racial pride, you know?
True.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right, sis.
That was the heart of the movement, because it definitely wasn't about religion or anything like that, because people were all different types of religions. It's not what it was about. It was about, are you race first? Are you race conscious? And if so, then let's get together and make this work.
That's right.
Right.
Right. That's right, sis. Go ahead, Brother Travis. You wanted to say something, brother?
No, I was just affirming what she said. That's very true.
Absolutely. Like you said, it wasn't about religion. It wasn't about any of this stuff. They just had a race first mentality, and look at what they were able to accomplish with a race first, and racial pride. Like, look what they were able to accomplish. Sis, I just wanted to highlight, like you said, we don't have to read this stuff. I just want to highlight a few things on page 426 at the bottom and page 427. The bottom of 426 is early ties to Africa.
Yes.
Consciousness. I want to read this. Consciousness of their ancestral homeland has been historically evident from the first arrivals, when some of these Africans brought as slaves into Americas killed themselves, believing that they would thereby return to Africa. Awareness of their heritage of culture and dignity continued through the colonial period and in the early days of this republic. The name African, was then preferred and used instead of the slave master's degrading epithet, Negro. So during this time period, you know, they didn't even want to be referred to as Negro. They say, call me African. But sis, it's crazy today that if you call some brothers and sisters African, they get offended. You get what I'm saying?
Right. They might hurt you.
Nigga. They would rather call a nigga than an African. Call someone an African, they'll frown their face up with you and they say, I'm not African. Misconceptions and the perceptions that they have of Mother Africa. So back then, they saying during the time that Garvey was going, you know, it was a movement, you know, like you said, sis, where it was race pride and they were pushing consciousness. And so then they said, look, don't even call me a Negro, call me African. And so they established these different organizations. And he talks about that at the top of page 427. They had the Free African Society. They had the African Protestant Episcopal Church. They had the African Protestant Church. They had the African Lodge of Prince Hall Masons. They had an African Methodist Church, an African Society for Mutual Aid, African Grove Playhouse in New York. So they started, you know, with this consciousness. Look at how they named their institutions and organizations. It was African, right? So, and then I love how at the rest of page 427, how he gives us the history before Garvey. Because normally, you know, people say Garvey, you know, he had the Black Star Line and Garvey had ships and he was, you know, transporting brothers and sisters back to the continent and doing this.
Right.
Garvey, we got to remember that Garvey came from a legacy of people that were folks already doing this.
Bishop Henry Turner.
Absolutely. He talks about Paul Cuffey. I don't know if I'm pronouncing Paul Cuffey right, but Paul Cuffey had a ship called the Traveler, which transported 38 African Americans back to Africa. Then you had Joseph Jenkins Roberts. No, that's the president of Libya. I'm sorry, I got it highlighted. You had Reverend. No, that's not Reverend. I'm sorry. Let me go to the next page. You had Bishop Turner. That's what you were just talking about, Brother Travis. You had Bishop Turner. You had the Jock Stock Company in North Carolina and the Freedmen's Immigration Aid Society. They had a ship called the Azure that transported 274 African Americans back to Africa. Then you had Captain Harry Dean, who had a ship called the Pedro Guerrino, which transported 197 immigrants. It says from the Savannah, Georgia to Liberia. So at the bottom of page 428, Dr. Amos Wilson says this is the legacy to which the Honorable Marcus Garvey and the UNIA were progenitors. All right. So he inherited that legacy of folks saying, look, let's go back to Africa. Let's establish, alliances and relationships with brothers and sisters on the continent. Let's build ships or let's buy ships to transport our brothers and sisters back to the continent. So he inherited that legacy, or he comes from that legacy. I just wanted to add that. Does anyone want to add anything else?
No, Queen.
No.
There's definitely a regression in our consciousness. You look at all of this, and you look at how we arrived to, and how kind of questions we're trying to. We're playing the dozens on YouTube. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're caught up into a lot of sectarianism, but we definitely regressed. I think in a lot of ways in our consciousness.
Oh yeah.
Well, we regressed because we've been allowed to be around, dominant culture that confuses us.
We don't need each other anymore.
Good point.
At one point,
Each other more than ever, but we're confused.
we understood that we needed each other in order to survive. We don't need each other anymore.
That's a perception, but Sister Alima, you hit the nail on the head with that. We have a perception that we don't need each other anymore.
That's right.
That's right.
That's not our reality. That's to get our money.
That's right.
Our production and our inventions,
and to keep us from creating another Tulsa.
Right. My parents used to make this point. My mom and my dad used to make this point.
Exactly.
That we removed ourselves from the we, and we became so individual. It was so that I am my own person, that you was in the island, that we used to walk and we used to believe that we needed each other. It was to the point it was a more communal aspect. Even when I used to grow up, we used to all live together, and it looked so funny from different homes in the community, but we had a concept that we had to live together. We had to bind together. So it kept the culture up. It kept the culture alive. So you're right, Sister Alima. We believe that we don't need each other, but I think that's a perception that was sold and bought.
Absolutely. And Dr. Amos Wilson named some powerful folks. He said Martin Delaney. I have Martin R. Delaney's. I have one of his books on my bookshelf that I haven't gotten to. Where is it? Martin Delaney.
There's so much reading I got to do.
Origins of Race and Color. I think that's the book. Hold on, y'all.
Yeah, that's the 100-page book.
Yeah, that's it, sis.
Okay, yeah, I haven't read it, but he was saying back in, I think this book was published, first published in 1879. He was already saying, look, he was already talking about the people of Kemet being Black and all of that. This is back in 1879. So I've never read it, sis. Have you gone through it?
I have not read it. I definitely plan to.
Me too, sis. That's why
I read it.
I feel like now that I'm reading this, I can't read anything else.
Right now. It's so
now.
Book.
So we can tackle some of those smaller books. Like I say, we can take a month off, from the bigger books and kind of tackle some of the smaller ones as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's what Sister Alima and I were talking about, Brother Travis. Absolutely. That once we get through this, we can do some 100-page, 200-page books and kind of
knock those out.
Oh yeah.
Y'all can hear me. I had that book. I bought that from Bookclub a year ago, and I remember a brother mentioned that book to me. Right there was where Nation Islam got most in regards to race and stuff. And when I gone through it, where they get majority of some of the information back then, Martin Delaney, but they never gave credit to that.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know that. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
You'll understand where you go for it, because I never read the Message to the Batman, but I read the book. Told me, you know, that's where they got most of the information, and I read it, so it kind of makes sense.
Okay.
Sister Alima, something is coming up, and you're gonna say, "Oh man, oh man." I'm not gonna mention any names, but folks who've folks who've been following me for quite some time is gonna know. But let's move on to page 429. I thought that this was very important. I'm in the middle of page 429. So there was a book that was written by the widow of Marcus Garvey. She wrote a book called Garvey and Garveyism.
Amy Jacquels.
Yes. And in that book, she talks about a letter that was written in the 1920s that was addressed to the Honorable C. King, the president of Liberia at the time. All right. So they had a guy named Garcia who was a person Garvey and them sent over. They made him, an executive officer to go over and represent the UNIA in Liberia. And so let me just tell you what the letter said, because this was, Garvey's intent, right? It says it is the intention of the UNIA to establish trade routes through a line of steamships, etc., to encourage immigration, to build up the country, to transfer its headquarters to Liberia, to bring with it medical and scientific units, there's that word, etc. Therefore, the organization asks for written assurance that every facility will be given it to procure lands for business, agriculture, and industrial purposes. In return, the organization, with its vast membership, will lend financial and moral support to the government to help her out of her present economic plight. So, they were really trying to establish a bilateral relationship with Liberia. It wasn't like they were just trying to come over there and colonize Liberia. They were saying, look, open your home to us. Let us come over here and build. In exchange for doing this, this is what we'll do for you. Rather than the Europeans, they just kind of want to come over, colonize, suck up your resources, suck up your human capital, your human resources, right? Your material resources, and leave and enrich themselves. It seems like with Garvey and the UNIA, they were saying, look, let's enrich one another. Again, it was a bilateral, it was a mutual benefit. The relationship was definitely mutual and mutually beneficial.
But look what happened.
All right. So I wanted to establish that. Did you guys want to add anything to this?
Yeah, unfortunately, that plan was not put into place. I wish it was able to put into place. Liberia wouldn't be in the state that it is in. But
yes, I read that.
The Europeans came over and basically very cheap labor. They realized that Liberia was rich in the rubber tree. Firestone came over and basically cheap labor had to work. The citizens of Liberia just used as cheap labor, utilized everything, put people in who wanted to treat the natural inhabitants badly. And you see what happened. The Civil War lasted over almost 16, 18 years.
Yep.
Just a bad situation.
And
the white man's involved.
And it's interesting. I also remember a few years ago, they said while Garvey was going to make that move with Liberia, understand the history of Europeans territories. They don't come to really negotiate, they come to colonize. We do it is how we do things in a balanced manner to help you, that way you can help us.
Absolutely.
It shows that it's always been in us as nature people. But what I could say this, and this is what the role W. E. Du Bois played in regards to try and stop that a little bit.
Oh, you better be careful. We got Brother Travis on the panel. He's a
okay. Well, this is what I can remember.
Express yourself, brother. I want you to. I want to hear your perspective. Go ahead, brother. I was just kidding with you.
But, all right, this is my perspective. This is what I heard. And that's why I remember. This is like 2 years ago. WD did told what's his name, Henry Ford, about the possibilities of Liberia. God was making that same direction in regards to rubber cars at the time. Rubber's very big. So he tried to, slow that down. Henry Ford tell him about the possibilities over this country. So that probably has somewhat to play. I mean, if anybody can elaborate, but this is what I remember. This is years ago back.
Yes.
Share. This is the share.
Yeah, but that's that national treasure basically. That was the first industrial trade, which was the rubber, along with the other things like the cocoa plant, palm butter, things in that nature. But Liberia was known for their rubber trees. And in the sake of understanding trade and what we could do in a country, when we go back, is understanding the resources that country would have and how we can internationally trade. But unfortunately, Liberia was used and left astray once the Civil War started. So Garvey definitely had the right intentions, I believe. And I think that after they destroyed his credibility, they did the same. They came back and did what he wanted to do, was to send African Americans back to Africa. And they went there with the intentions to take out and not put back in. And you have the present state of Liberia now with Asian, the Asian invasion.
Absolutely, brother T. It's like it was a bilateral, and then you had unilateral relationship that benefited the Europeans, right?
Yes.
So that's what's going on. And I remember you were telling me that you had family over there, and you were talking about how they're over there struggling right now. That the economy is terrible over there. Right.
In that rebuilding stage, most definitely now.
Wow.
Less than $1 a day. That's
the average person is making $1 a day in Liberia.
Not even that. You have Nigeria that living in poverty under $1.90. You have the average person in Liberia, based off profession, making $300 a year in US dollars.
Wow.
Ooh. Yeah.
Wow. And see, last week on the show, T, we were talking about, investing in Africa and how investing in Africa could be, a benefit ways. And remember, you were asking me about Dr. Amos Wilson talked about subcontracting, and we talked about joint ventures, subcontracting, and it was like a few other things that he mentioned. And see, that would be a way to benefit them. If we subcontracted our work over there, that would, we would probably get the labor cheaper. We could get our stuff done cheaper, and it would benefit them because we're giving them jobs.
Yeah.
You get what I'm
saying?
So, you asked me what's the benefit, and I was saying that I don't think I gave you an adequate answer. I just kind of simply said, we would empower their economy. We would stimulate their economy. But I didn't get into detail. But we could save on labor. With joint ventures, then some of the labor, some of the costs, to do certain things and to produce certain things, it wouldn't be solely on us if we entered into joint ventures with our brothers and sisters. If we subcontract, we probably could get some things done for cheap. Not that we would exploit them, but we could fuel their economy, hire them, give them jobs, and also save a few dollars.
That's an important concept, and I believe everybody in this panel probably would agree. Is just creating a viable economy in the continent. That's the most important thing in any trade. Just building a viable economy so people can live and families can flourish. So that's a good idea, Dr. Maat.
Well, it wasn't my idea. Remember, he talked about it in chapter 6.
Yeah. I mean, to bring it up. Basically bring it up.
Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah, I thought about it, bro. When you last week when I looked back at the broadcast, I said I don't think I gave him an adequate answer. I was going to bring that up. It was my intent to bring that up today anyway. But I want to highlight at the top of page 430. All right, I want to highlight at the top of page 430, or in the middle of page 430. So it says in June 1924, the UNIA sent out a team of experts to prepare camps for the colonists. They were O'Mealy, commissioner, William Strange, minor, and civil engineer. Sister. Sister Aline, civil engineer, Roberts, and electrical engineer, Walcott, shipwright and builder, Harley, carpenter and builder, Nicholas, mechanical engineer, and Report Christian, secretary. With these men went thousands of dollars of material ready to use for landing. Additional shipments on later ships on a later ship were contracted to be sent for when there were storage facilities. So sis, you know why I highlighted that, right? They brought in the engineers. So they were trying to minimize what engineers do. But you see, Garvey and the UNIA, when they wanted to go somewhere and build, who did they get? They got their carpenters. They got their carpenters, their builders, I think one was a miner, and then they had engineers.
People don't understand what engineers do. They don't understand it. When I worked at Spirit and we built airplanes, guess who drew out the layouts for the airplanes? The engineers.
You got to have math at a high level.
Science, exactly. Exactly.
My cousin is an engineer, man. I mean, you know,
I think engineers are awesome.
Yeah.
This is where, Dr. Maat, this is where Booker T program comes in. It comes in with the skill sets we need to export over into Liberia as carpenters, plumbers, and other various aspects. I'm not talking about Booker T's politics. Wipe that out. That's not what we need there. I'm talking about the skill set in agriculture. You had all the various disciplines that we would need to establish our nation. That's what I'm coming at with it.
Absolutely.
Hey, and you there?
Yes, sir.
And we always emphasize on our youth the potential of what they have naturally. These are things we have to push our youth, people to start building that, and not regular engines, but into effective application and creation. You see, that's been great back in the past. People. Say things have to be cultivated. What's the name? He went to school, grew out of the schooling of his own by what he. You know what I'm saying?
Going in and out.
Going in and out, can't hear him.
That potential.
Brother Chaos.
Yeah, hello.
I'm sorry, your mic is going in and out.
Yeah, you breaking up real crazy.
You get me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly now.
Yeah, so you know, it's always to harness the potential. I hear background noise, but the potential is
breaking up.
Because, like you say, you bring and yeah. All right, y'all guys continue. Let me see if I can try.
All right, Sister Mayat.
Oh yeah, I'm right here. Hold on, let me go. I think he's breaking up, like something's going on. But okay, at the bottom, and I thought about Sister Alima when I read the bottom, the last paragraph on page 430, leading into page 431. That Baba Amos Wilson says, for liberating, enriching, and empowering economic, cultural, I hear some noise, I'm getting ready to use one. Economic and cultural relations to take place within the context of the worldwide African community. The Pan-African economic intentions, World War I African-American leadership, and of Marcus Garvey must be rediscovered, revitalized, and refurbished by the contemporary African leadership and community. The success of continental African-American trade relations depends to a significant degree on the colonization of Africa by segments of the African-American community and vice versa with continental Africans. So I immediately thought about repatriation, which Sister Alima talks about all the time. And that's what Amos Wilson is talking about, repatriation. So we're at the bottom of, we started in this repression of African-American economic power. Dr. Amos Wilson says that one of the most important and potent sources of social power is access to and control over economic resources. I'm going to say that again. One of the most important and potent sources of social power is access to and control over economic resources. All right. He says the relative powerlessness of African Americans is directly related to their relative lack of control over important economic resources. However, as demonstrated in the prior section, this lack is neither due to the absence of an entrepreneurial tradition, nor an absence of economic virtues. So celebrated in white Americans and economically successful immigrant groups, including the fabled Koreans and Cubans, the relative feebleness of African-American enterprise has been deliberately induced, okay? Deliberately induced and maintained by a number of concrete social, economic, social, political actions taken against their economic growth, development, and power by three main groups: white Americans, immigrants, and blacks themselves. Wait a minute, there goes that accountability, all right? He says particularly the black leadership establishment. All right, so then he goes on to recap a little bit of the early African-American entrepreneurial history, right? He's basically saying that, look, we had this spirit, we did it then, we did it then, we can do it again. He goes on to quote Butler, and he says, it is significant to point out that the system of segregation, see, a lot of people don't understand what segregation did to us. We just think that Jim Crow and segregation, this stuff happened, it's a thing of the past, but we don't understand how Jim Crow and segregation and even slavery impacts our social, economical, and political position today. So on page 432, he says, he quotes Butler, it is significant to point out the system of segregation, which was implemented as a program in the South applied exclusively to African Americans. Mm-hmm. He said for Chinese Americans, Mexican Americans, Jewish Americans, or Native Americans, the system did not apply. Okay. Thus, in the South, and as late as the 1960s, Mexican Americans did not have to drink, eat, or sleep at segregated fountains or in segregated hotels. This is also true for other ethnic groups, such as the Italians and the Jews who moved into Southern states. So although there were competitive conflicts between ethnic, non-Black ethnic groups, there were never explicit legalistic codes and practices developed by the state government to control their every movement. Mm-hmm. Now, our ancestor italicized this. He said this governmental control took away the opportunity for Afro-American business to compete in a truly open market. This is one of the fundamental differences between Afro-American business and ethnic American business. For example, while the Chinese in California were able to develop a white clientele, African Americans were forced to find clients from within their own communities. Mm-hmm. Such a governmental policy negatively impacted the program which Washington Booker designed for business development in the South. All right. So he's going into on page 433, pages 433 to 432 to 433. He's talking about the impacts that Jim Crow and segregation had on us as an African American community. Does anyone want to add anything? Because I'm moving on to page 434 and I'm gonna pass the mic.
No, this is
anything else? Anything else?
No, I'm good, sis.
All right, cool. So page 434, someone take it from immigration and Black economic stagnation.
As noted in a prior chapter, immigration in important instances also operated against the job and business opportunities of African Americans. That's what you wanted me to start it, right, sis?
Yep.
Okay. In collusion with and sometimes stimulated by regressive white, racist, governmental, and social practices, immigrants often dislodged and replaced African American workers and business persons from the economic niches they held in the U.S. occupational and market structures. Wow. The immigrants, more often than not, internalized and expressed the same racist attitudes toward blacks, just like they're doing today, as did, he said it, and still do, native racist whites. Graham and Beck from the City Sun 6392 provide an important analysis of the significantly negative impact immigration has had on Black economic prospects for the past several decades as well as today. They note, quote, "This country has a long and sad history of allowing the massive importation of low-skilled foreign workers to displace African Americans," unquote. They intimidate that Booker Washington, in his famous 1895 Atlanta Exposition Address, implored white industrialists to turn to the underemployed, freed slaves, and their descendants to fill the factories, then opening up by rapid industrialization instead of importing millions of workers for Europe. Go ahead, Booker T.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He was not heeded, however, Graham and Beck further observed. In 1965, when the Civil Rights Act provided for major political advancement, Congress revised the immigration law, once again, allowing millions of foreign workers to pour into our inner cities. The effect on lower skilled urban Blacks has been devastating, as Dr. Maat mentioned earlier. More than 25 million immigrants and their descendants since 1970 have flooded the unskilled labor markets, causing poor wages to decline still lower levels, according to labor economists such as Vernon Briggs of Cornell University.
Mm.
Wow. Just to piggyback on Dr. when you were talking about the significant, to point out the system of segregation on page 432, I did have a point I wanted to make, and it ties into what I just read.
All right.
Psychology of the Black child, he talks about the frustrated life of the African American and how segregation and the other ills that we had to go through. When mothers were, the brother, Baba Wilson, got so deep with this, he broke down when a mom is expecting, how that stress affects the baby. Okay, and he used medical terms and whatnot to prove his point. And you're right. The stress from the mom and how it affects the fetus, and even the frustrated life of the Black man trying to provide for his family, how that affected our communities across the country, at those particular times. And, the infighting that we would have because the man couldn't provide, and then the mother, being under stress, and how that affected the child even before, the child was manifested, out of the womb, with some deep stuff. And even so, when we hear post-traumatic slave syndrome, y'all always want to bring up the Black card and what happened back then. Forget that back then. But no, you need to understand the implications that have happened to us, the things that have happened to us, and we're still suffering from that.
Yeah, people need to, our history, because they come over here and they side with the, and work again, and they look like us, because they have no understanding of the legacy of slavery. Right.
Pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. Well, you took our boots. We ain't got no boots to pull up. Well, come on now.
Yeah, they want you to run the race. They want you to run the race.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We're still on.
No, you good, brother. No, you good.
Our people are some else. Man, I tell you, man.
Great point.
No, it's me again. I had to use something else. Let me switch my thing. Yeah, maybe I can see.
Brother, whatever connection you have, keep that one right there.
Yeah, it's better.
Yeah, this one is better.
I have can I make a point? The point I wanted to stress on when we talked about the immigration and the Black economic stagnation. I watched the show earlier this week, and it stressed on how immigration of people coming to the United States kept our jobs that would have been offered to us low and kept us jobless. If you understand what I'm saying. They stress when nurses came from the Philippines and an Asian community, it kept the jobs for Black nurses down, and Black nurses was unable to find work because the influx of Filipino and Asian nurses in the healthcare. So one thing that we have to be leery of in the United States is that we're being blocked out once again.
Right.
It's a new influx coming in, taking positions that would be ours. So we have to be real wary of that, how they do it, and they'll create a narrative once again that this is benefiting the U.S. and getting this labor. But what it is getting cheaper labor.
Exactly.
And our brothers and sisters who went to school to learn this trade is being X'd out. So,
yep.
Once again,
why do you, when you people employed here, put the money behind them and educate them so that they could do those jobs instead of bringing people in, so it's it's by design.
By design. One another way to keep us down, keep us out.
And they want people that
is actually weeding out a race to the point where it's now it's leading time now. Where time say, if we keep you around, you're gonna get yourself together because the system's gonna get harder. We're gonna apply more pressure on you, and it's gonna make you turn into a diamond where you're gonna eventually flourish. Because when you apply enough pressure to erase people, you're gonna create something. Our people have done this in the past. What they do. So what they do now, because they know since they are a dying population, it's now we have to turn it up on these people. If we're not gonna exist, we're gonna force you into directions that you don't see it. One of them, interracial coupling. I see a lot of ads and commercials now. They push this now on an all-time high. At one time, these people never want us to be near each other. But now they push it because it's always political.
Well, yeah,
so I'm gonna let you continue.
That causes confusion. If you're
it causes great confusion. It causes
relationship. When somebody poses Black empowerment to you, you're gonna be like, well, what about white people? And white people are not bad. You're gonna be saying all kind of crazy, stuff like that, irregardless of history. Yeah. That's a form of warfare. It has nothing to do with wanting to be around Black. That's warfare.
Yeah, it's warfare in many things. Many things. And our people are gullible. Are very good at it.
Of Black people to wander around, they're oppressive.
Okay.
Because they did.
All right, y'all.
Exactly.
So let's keep it moving. We got a few more
all forms of work.
We got to get out of here in 22 more minutes. And we have 7 pages. Oh my gosh. Do we have 7? No, we have like 9 pages. So we need to kind of comb through it. On page 435, he talks about affirmative action, and he drives home the point that affirmative action did not just benefit Black folks, okay? He says affirmative action and other remedies, which originally were intended to redress 2 centuries of exploitation and discrimination against Blacks, now must be shared with recently arrived foreign-born populations. So he talks about that. At the bottom of 435, I highlighted this entire paragraph. He says the series of events is all the more interesting and galling for conscious African Americans in view of the fact that these groups received citizenship and civil rights almost immediately on their arrival, when Blacks themselves did not enjoy these same privileges and had to struggle mightily, often bloodily, and over centuries to obtain them. The recent arrivals were and are permitted the same, if not freer, access to governmental, financial, and social resources when they had or had virtually no service to country, to credit, as do African Americans. He got that from Butler. Essentially, all that African Americans have struggled to gain after having their labor production expropriated through slavery and criminally low wages, and after their joining and fighting in all the American wars from the Revolutionary War onwards, has been their exclusion from full participation in the American market economy. So Dr. Amos Wilson is saying, look, all the shit we did for you, look at how we're being repaid, right? That's what he's saying in layman's terms.
Yes.
Basically.
And I had this underlined: the loyalty of African Americans to this country for centuries has apparently not earned them enough credits to step to the head of the line in front of immigrants who not only recently got off the boat, but many of whom at one point in time may have been active enemies of the U.S.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's heavy.
I want to sign that as buttons with the bomb sound that he does.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's just boom.
Yeah.
He tore that up. So Sister Alima, because I know how you can get through, sis. We got about 7 more pages, sis. Just can you take us home?
Well, I will be home in about 2 minutes. I do have my book.
I can hold it. No, you driving. No, don't worry about it. Someone kick off Black as immigrants. Okay, I'm not even going to kick it off. We're just going to say this. In this section, Dr. Amos Wilson stresses that you can't call Black people immigrants. In the second paragraph, he says African Americans are not immigrants. He said they are native born. He said, and then he started talking about how, people say things like they'll compare our progression to the progression of immigrants who come over here. And so Dr. Amos Wilson says on the top of page 433, he says that these findings, and he's talking about a book entitled Ethnic America by Thomas Sowell. He says these findings support that the rapid economic progress of new immigrant groups relative to native-born African-American groups has little or nothing to do with the inherent ethnic character of the non-Black groups, since similar differences in economic progress occur within the same groups between native-borns and new arrivals. And he's really addressing the myths. You know how people will say things like when they compare Blacks and non-Blacks, they'll say that, the difference in favor of non-Blacks is because, they're willing to work long hours, or to work 2 or 3 low-wage jobs, or to save their money or invest their business, right? Or they'll say they do business with their own. So it's always some sort of reason why people justify or why people believe that, these non-Blacks do better than Blacks, right? So Dr. Amos Wilson said, look, at the end of the day, it regardless of what group you belong to, he was saying that he said that new arrivals will I think he's saying that new arrivals will surpass, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all. He's saying that new arrivals will surpass the native borns at some point, right? Or is it the other way around?
It's right, sis.
No, that's right, sis.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. So that's what he's saying, that at some point that will happen. That's at the top of page 437.
I put a chart on my post, Facebook post this week that showed just that. Sister Lima, do you remember that post?
Oh, here it is. I see.
I remember that post.
Yeah, I see it now. I see it now.
Okay.
But I didn't remember. I'm gonna go back, bro, and check your post.
Okay.
I'm definitely gonna go back and check your post, but I lost my spot, but I see it now. He's saying when the currently celebrated new immigrants become 3rd, 4th generation Americans, new immigrants from their own ethnic stock will quite likely surpass them in entrepreneurial drive. All right. So you're right, y'all. That was correct.
Right.
The first time I was trying to find where it was. All right. So moving on to page 438, he talks about the underdevelopment in the ghettos. All right. He's talking about the underdevelopment in the ghetto. So I'm at the middle of page 438. He says that the urban ghetto is a depressed and underdeveloped enclave within a prosperous and progressive economy. It produces little that can be sold outside the ghetto other than low-wage labor. Underdevelopment is preserved by the continuous drain of income and resources that keeps the ghetto poor. The pool of low-wage labor is preserved by barriers that make it difficult, while other social economic forces provide recruits from outside the ghetto. These flows of income, resources, and people interact with the conditions of poverty and underdevelopment in a system of circular causation. That's not caution, causation or something like that, that maintains the ghetto as a characteristic feature of the national economy. Okay, so he says that the drain includes savings, physical capital, human resources, and income. Says as a result, poverty areas are left without the most important resources needed for development, and improvement in the economic infrastructure of supporting institutions is seriously deficient. All right. He says that the best and brightest are drawn out of the ghetto to serve themselves and contribute to further advancement of the progressive sector of society outside of the ghetto. On page 438, he calls the Black African communities, he called them economic brothels. That blew me away. That our communities are economic brothels. And I thought that was kind of wrong. Like, God damn, economic.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, though. That's right.
Like basically saying we're getting pimped.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying, that we're getting pimped. He's calling out, we're getting pimped economically. So Dr. Amos says in some, both the Black urban ghettos, he says, and the Black suburban ghettos. Because we think that, because we live in the suburbs, you got folks that live in the city, folks that live in the county, you think that you just escape. No. He says in some, both the Black urban ghettos and the Black suburban ghettos, he said, for these no more control the wealth, resources, and businesses of their communities than do the inner city community. So let's cut that out, folks. When you move to the suburbs, you think you're doing a little better. He said, they are essentially economic brothels where the white American community, in alliance with immigrant communities, exploitatively achieve a good deal of economic satisfaction at the expense of the African American community. The intense consumer orientedness and entrepreneurial non-competitiveness of the African American community make it a perfect target for economic and labor exploitation and resource drainage. As intimated by Frustfoyle and Bates, the entire economy outside of the ghetto benefits from the income, capital, and manpower resources that are drawn out, just as it benefits from a pool of low-wage labor that provides relatively low-cost services to those outside. So then Baba Amos Wilson, not only did he call our communities economic brothels, he even went as far to say that we should conceptually consider the collective African American community as a third world nation. So when he first said that, I said, damn, that's kind of harsh. But when I read through the description, I understand why. He says, if we were to conceptually consider the collective, can you read that, Sister Camille? Read that paragraph for me, sis.
Which paragraph is that?
This is the second paragraph on page 439.
Oh, okay. If we were to conceptually consider the collective African American community as a third world nation, one encapsulated within a first world nation, the source of its economic, political, and social problems would be readily apparent. It suffers a negative balance of payment. The Black American community is a de facto alien nation located on American soil. Like a typical third world country, it imports or buys more than it exports or not self-sustaining. Its local economy is not locally owned or controlled, unable to invest in its own infrastructure and productive facilities. It's chronically massive external debt. Consequently, it cannot provide enough money to fund its cultural and social institutions, to maintain and enhance its political economic organization, materially support, reinforce, and reward its positive social values and behavior, to support its families, maintain and enhance the dignity, self-esteem, and social standing of its residents. Our God.
That's serious.
Serious.
Sis, did you read all?
Yeah, I read that.
Where did you finish this? I'm sorry.
With the
you stop at established page 441.
No.
Sister Camille.
17.2.
So where are you, sis? Where did you stop?
I stopped on page 439.
39.
Now finish at the top of page. Read the whole thing and finish at the top at the top of page 441, where it says cumulative process of growth is to be established. I want you to finish that on out.
Okay. We concur with the assessment of Fussfeld and Bates that economic growth is particularly difficult for the ghetto economy.
Mm-hmm.
Its weak infrastructure, entrepreneurship, capital make it difficult to generate a growth process. Instead of generating poverty cycle, any program or programs that seek to improve the economy of urban poverty must reverse the drain of skilled manpower, capital, and income if a cumulative process of growth is to be established.
Absolutely. That's what I wanted you to read too, sis. So he's saying that we can conceive of ourselves as we're economic brothels, and he said that we can conceive of ourselves as a third world nation.
Mm-hmm.
And and everything that Dr. Amos Wilson laid out was definitely true. So when we spend our money, just know that we're being pimped. So when you go get your chicken box down the street, from the Asians, you're being pimped. For the ladies who want to buy the Gucci and the Louis, that stuff that costs $10, as Sister Segment said, and that stuff that costs you $10, $20 to make, and you spending $1,000 for it, you've been pimped. Those J's about $20, right? You paying $150, $200, you're being pimped. And if you're okay with being pimped, that's on you. But you're being pimped.
Are being pimped by those who are supposed and also supposed to help us. The politicians, the one we all black, we in an all black city, and we getting pimped by the politicians. We getting pimped by the business that surrounds our communities. And Bobby Wilson's correct. We become third-class citizens and soon to be fourth-class citizens in the richest nation in the world.
Yep.
And potentially fifth-class citizens
in the world,
if not careful.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, we don't.
Citizens, if we're not careful. Fifth class.
If we're not careful, absolutely correct. I was doing some research, Dr. Maat, and just about I have a congresswoman who's not that far from my place, and I looked at her website or her Facebook page, and on every picture that she was in, she was with the K group community. The K group community is the Koreans in Baltimore that runs all the food and liquor shops. And everything that the K-Gro community, that's K-A-G-R-O, community and were doing, they were meeting with our politicians, they were meeting our community associations, they were donating what the black churches needed in the community. So we wonder why these business cannot get out of our community, because they're being bought. They're being supported by our politicians. They've been supported by our black churches. They've been supported to continue to pimp us.
Right. They help them.
That's how they got them. If you ever want to look at the Facebook site, it's the K-A-G-R-O. You'll see our politicians here in Maryland being used to keep us poor.
Oh my God. As you see, it's the
K-A-G-R-O. And I guarantee you, if you look at every city in America, you'll see the Korean, Chinese, and Japanese businesses funding our politicians, our churches. And you ask the question, if you ever go to the community association for all the homeowners, how many business owners look like you?
Right.
And what are they really giving back?
Nothing.
Thank you.
Zero.
So I was just trying to wonder why every shop and every business in my neighborhood was Korean or from the Asian community.
Right.
And looking at their website under my councilwoman, I see exactly why. So Bobby Wilson was correct. We're being used
pimped, and abused.
Yeah, because they have everybody else's
brother.
You know.
Thank you.
And
and it's very interesting, brother.
Brother
Everett, go ahead, Sister Camille.
Oh, I would say that because they also keep pimping us in another way mentally by promoting this whole multiculturalism thing. Detriment, because nobody else practice that mess but Black people. Everybody else is for self.
Right.
Nobody, you know, and they put all that multiculturalism is so that they can get the slots and jobs and things that we're supposed to get. So they'll get some other people and they'll say, well, that's multicultural.
Right.
We were supposed to. And we support that craziness. Like, how are you going to support some stuff? How are you going to support other people that don't support you at all? You should be just thinking of self all the time.
Everybody else does, except for us.
It's a crime.
And then we feel bad, sis, don't we?
I don't be feeling nothing.
I'm just saying, Black folks feel bad when you can't include everybody. You feel like you're doing something wrong, you know?
But it goes.
Absolutely, I agree with you, sis.
Well,
I agree with you 200%. But I'm just like, look,
like, man, go sit down somewhere.
Look at what happened with Brother Travis brought this to our attention a few discussions ago. Remember, he said that Dr. Claude Anderson went to Detroit and they were trying to build like a little Africa in Detroit.
That's right.
And he said that the Asians and Arabs band together to stop him from doing it. But not only did the Asians and the Arabs band together to stop him, when I spoke to Dr. Claude Anderson 3 weeks ago, he said that the Black people banded. There were Black politicians who sided with the Asians and Arabs, who called it, I think they call it reverse racism or something like that. And so
you got to talk to Claude Anderson about that, huh? Good.
Look, brother. Now don't say this. I know we live. But look, Brother Jabari snuck me in the back and gave me an opportunity to meet Dr. Claude Anderson. Brother T, I told you to come with me, and you couldn't come. So look, brother, you know, he was signing books, you know, but he got me in the back to talk to Dr. Claude Anderson. And we took a picture. I actually took a picture. No one else was able to take a picture with him at the event, but your girl, Dr. Maat. Go
ahead, doctor.
Look, I got snuck in the back. I felt like a little
picture.
But oh man, so I got my little picture with Dr. Claude Anderson.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you was able to talk about Little Africa to him about that. Wow. And he said the Black people too was in on that. I can imagine.
Yeah, you know we're not.
There you go.
That's the picture right there, y'all.
There we go.
Yeah, man. So, but yeah, he talked to me about it, and he also expressed his frustration at this point because you know he's getting older. You know, he has some medical issues. I'm not going to put that out there, but he has some issues, and he's just frustrated at this point. He's like, you know, anyway, he's just frustrated at this point. I'm not going to even put out there, but he's frustrated at this point because he feels like he's dedicating his life to trying to empower our people, and we're just not where he wants us to get at this point. He's feeling some type of way. And I had an opportunity to talk to Dick Gregory before Dick Gregory passed also. And he kind of expressed the same frustration with our people because they feel like they've dedicated, you know, their lives to, you know, empowering Black folks. And we're just not where they expect us to be right now. But I assured Dr. Claude Anderson that we're working. You know, it may not be, you know, collectively, you know, but it's a lot of us out here on the battlefield.
But Dick Gregory was on that civil rights kick. I got old tapes on Dick Gregory. My teacher was in discussion with him. Elbert Clegg out of Detroit. He was on the Tony Brown Journal. It was Elbert Clegg. It was also Dick Gregory. Many civil rights leaders that was on there, Abernathy, and all of them on a discussion. Dick Gregory sided with them civil rights Negroes. You know, he was on the Martin Luther King kick for a long time. You know, I give it to him. Okay, well, he evolved later on. You know, because many of the civil rights leaders became revolutionaries. You got to realize, you know, Angela Davis. You know, Marimba Ani come out of Student Nonviolent Coordinating Commission. You know, she evolved. But back in the day, you know, Dick Gregory was a big civil rights Negro.
Know that.
Yeah, he was big.
I'm not surprised.
Like you said, we all evolve.
Yeah, we all evolve. That's right.
We all evolve.
But you know, family.
He was a good friend of
Martin
Luther King.
Yeah, he was.
You know, hearing all this, it lets me go back to us. I don't know if it could say African proverb, but it said this when they sent Marcus back to Jamaica. He told our people this. Now it's going on 91 years because he sent back in 1927. It said, "Black people, you must be fear and be careful. If you are not careful, you're going to suck the poisons of Western civilization." And now we say the effects of the poison. The poison has taken so much that the body has to die now. It does, because if you don't get the poison out, it will kill you. So what he just said is not no little curse, is a revelation. What if you do not get your act together one way or the other, you're going to affect the poisons. This multicultural garbage bullshit, that is one of many poisons that a lot, what they want to consider Negroes, follow and are paid off well. And at times for us to get through it, we have to really clean some serious house, because to really get ourselves in the direction, you have to get rid of some of these coons Negroes. You know, because they're the ones that are they are now the vanguards to really stop real progress. And much times I always think when I think back, is there any way to reform a coon Negro? At this age, how we are in dire need? No. Matter of fact, I wouldn't even entertain them at this point, because there's only two choices. Us or you against us.
And you know, Dick Gregory was big on them white women too, you know, back in the day.
I was surprised. I was surprised. A lot of
big time with the white women. Big player with the white women. Yeah.
Listen. Really, I mean, I've been learning so much now that I did not understand in the past of last year. That I say, yo, we are some serious crap right here. You know, I always ignore certain things, even with the swirling thing, which I'm not always for anyway. But when I start seeing things about the amount of black men that swirl, even let's say back there, even now today, and how it's leading to today, this is a real problem. And people say, "Oh, love is love," and no, that's bullshit. Because the product of your love is causing your destruction.
That's right.
Because think about this: anybody that said they're fight for the cause or for the people, I look at every avenue of what you as a character is, how far you willing to take this. Because if you have, let's say, your mate is not a reflection of that, then you're not serious.
Can't say that. What about James Baldwin?
Oh, James Baldwin? Oh, James Baldwin. Well, you know, I'm trying to. Well, we're all black people, and I'm not gonna say nothing nice if people want to hear it, because I have my views of James Baldwin, and I started learning something from Eric Gene about him, so I'm not gonna.
You gotta let me know what that is.
I ain't gonna say it now, because the people gonna get.
Peace to the ancestor. Peace to the
I heard some stuff too. It wasn't so fair.
Peace to the ancestor. We're not even gonna. We're not gonna do that.
I'm not gonna even go in there with him, because you know how our people are. This, and then me, I'm a realist, and I get raw, doctor.
I agree. I think there's a time and place for everything.
Absolutely. But we gotta move on. We got 3 pages. Got to move on. Top of page 440. The planned permanent economic depression. I'm not going to read the full page. Dr. Amos Wilson says here, many of the social and political problems prevalent in the national African-American community stem from the fact that the past several decades, for the past several decades, it has suffered economic depression. Now, this is what I found quite interesting. At the bottom, it says both business and government do not see full employment or even really low unemployment as necessarily a good thing. So we say, look, we want you to hire our folks. You know, we need full employment. We need full employment, right? Or either low unemployment. But Dr. Amos Wilson says both business and government do not see full employment or even really low unemployment as necessarily a good thing. For business employers, full employment means that the workers would take advantage of the scarcity of labor and force them or blackmail them into paying higher wages, by that increasing business costs and perhaps reducing profits. For the government, the concern is that full employment or very low unemployment and pushing up wages will also increase inflation, thereby decreasing the value of real income or reducing the purchasing power of the dollar. Consequently, both business and government have vested interest in maintaining a certain level of average unemployment. The debate between economists and government bureaucracies and quasi-governmental agencies such as the Federal Reserve concerns what level of unemployment should be maintained in order to hold down wages and inflation rates. So we need to understand that unemployment rates, number of jobs, this stuff is all by design, because their objective, it says, is to maintain order. It says to hold down wages and inflation rates. I'm sorry. This is what the government is doing, okay? So we got to understand the unemployment rate and the number of jobs available. This stuff is not coincidental. It doesn't just happen. This stuff is organized, okay? And it's decided upon. So anyway, Dr. Amos Wilson ends on the top of page 441. He says this conclusive policy, but assures excruciating levels of social problems in that community as well. He said, this being the case, the African-American nation is faced with a major decision. It must increase its ownership of businesses and productive investments, its savings, its equity in productive corporations of all sizes, its quality of human capital, highly trained, highly skilled personnel, and its ability to favorably influence governmental economic policy to the greatest possible degree, or sink into economic and social degradation. All right. So at the bottom of page 441, Dr. Amos Wilson is saying, look, if you guys want to empower yourselves and you want to turn this whole thing around and you no longer want to be an economic brothel or a third world nation, he's saying kick the foreigners out. All right. Yep. It says the reversal of the Black ghetto deterioration, economic decline, and collapse requires that it must, in no uncertain terms, capture and control its economic infrastructure, i.e., he says eject foreign and immigrant owners and controllers of its internal economy from its midst. He's saying get the foreigners out of here. He said it must retard the flow outward, retard the outward flow of its human resources, and circulate those resources within its borders as many times as possible before the flow out. In addition, the African-American community must at least balance its trade imbalance with the larger society, i.e., see that at least as much money flows into the community as flows out. He said this requires a deep and abiding sense of ethnic, he's saying basically an ethnic ideology, right? Which requires a deep and abiding sense of ethnic solidarity, organization based on ethnicity, and an ethnic identification, a healthy degree of ethnic selfishness and self-centeredness, ethnic pride, high self-esteem, self-confidence, ethnically based economic aggressiveness and acumen, all justified and rationalized by an appropriate ethnic ideology. So let's move on. Let's close this up with the Black bourgeois, the repression of Black entrepreneurialism. All right, we got 2 pages because there's nothing on page 444. You want me to like 2 sentences? So we got 2 pages to go. Can one of the brothers lead us?
We have indicated some of the reasons for the repression of the African-American entrepreneurial spirit: immigration, restrictive governmental laws, trade restrictions, and white racist social practices. However, there is an additional set of reasons which in the end is almost as repressive as the others: a regressive Black bourgeois leadership establishment held mentally captive to an anti-African assimilationist ideology. Wow. This leadership is typified by the NAACP, the Urban League, the late Dr. King, Jesse Jackson, a coterie of Black preachers, politicians, intellectuals, and professionals who not only neither advocate nor aggressively promulgate an economic program for the African American community, but actively fight against such a program, kind of like what Dr. Claude Anderson was talking about. They seem to perceive the problems facing the Black community as essentially problems having to do with civil rights, human rights, and moral turpitude, i.e. the failure of America, highly publicized moral, constitutional, political, and civic values. Thus, the program these leaders have imposed on us is the one political scientists have aptly captioned non-economic liberalism. Wow. The emphasis on non-economic liberalism as the guiding philosophy of quote unquote reasonable Black bourgeois leadership involves the projecting of strong reformist impulses in the realms of civil liberties, race relations, and foreign affairs, but not in the basic distribution of wealth and power.
And what Dr. Amos Wilson is saying, look, they didn't got us caught up in non-economic liberalism, right? Where they're pressing, civil rights, race relations, civil liberties, foreign affairs. But we never talk about redistributing the wealth and the power. And Dr. Anderson talks about this a lot. He said, we were fighting to be equal. We were fighting for this. We want to do this. We want to do that. And white folks say, well, what do you want? We just want to use the same water fountain as you. Right. We just want to go to the same bathroom as you. We just want to, let's think about that. We just want to go in. We just want to shop in your establishments.
Right.
And spend our money back with them. Ain't that backward?
We want to look
about the wealth and resources.
Right. You're absolutely right. And everything now leads back to exactly what you're saying, Dr. Maat, and what the panel is saying. Dr. Barbara Wilson said it. We need more than just inclusion, just the ability to work at the job, the ability to drink at the water fountain, the ability to sit at the table. We need the economic means in order to do it. And just everything leads back to the dire situation that we are in today. And it's a terrible situation if we don't fix it. And we have the information, the knowledge, the know-how to do so.
And the DNA.
And the DNA. It's in our DNA.
But it's ironic that our people fight for things that you see. One thing, when I look back at history, it lets me know, say, the way how we led to this direction, we have to be very well mentally ill to fight for our own survival, our own, anything. Because why would you back there just to go out way to fight for acceptance, to drink the water, to potentially, go in their schools, to, participate in their stadiums, even include to intermingle with them sexually. I mean, these are a sign of mental illness.
Yeah, low racial self-esteem.
Yeah, and it goes back to the same bit, mental illness, low self-esteem. So, when we find these issues, and mind you, Dr. Amos Wilson was not no soft man back in the day when he was alive.
Not at all.
He was very raw. I'm gonna tell you something. I watched a particular video lecture when he was talking about when he wrote that book about Black and Black violence. He said it's gonna be a point where Black men, for them to I'm gonna try to remember quote it. He said Black men gonna have to probably destroy white males in order to get back to the rightful place. Like he said, literally, gonna have to kill European males. You know what I'm saying? So this man was not no soft dude. He knows what time was.
Not at all.
And when I watched the lecture, it made me think, it sounds radical, but when we go through, it probably make a little bit more sense why he said that. Because of the conditioning. Because if you are in a fight amongst yourself, that you go your way to go kill your own, you know what I'm saying? By the servitude of your master, then you are playing into his trap, and you are doing what is his bidding. And that is to destroy yourself.
Absolutely.
What Sister Camille said a little bit ago about spiritual warfare. And A lot of us in the conscious community, sometimes we frown upon that type of talk, but that's real. We are in a spiritual war against these devils, and they have always strategized. As a matter of fact, in this book, Dr. Wilson talked about the think tanks. They've always strategized against us because they understand how powerful our melanin is. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the book, The Blueprint for Black Power. We are, excuse my language, we are the fucking blueprint. So everything that we do, they have to take from us for them to create environment or whatever they do, because we are the blueprint. So if you look at these pages that the ancestors before him revealed to Dr. Wilson, to Baba Wilson, they revealed to him some serious information for us to use now so that we can continue to fight and overcome these devils. But the point I'm making now is that we are the blueprint. We need to realize that they've always, when they came out them caves, it was like, wait a minute. These people here got what we need to be successful. And they began at that point to strip us. So if we can fall back and be like, you know what, we need to come together, real talk, to make this happen. And I always say this platform here, some people may watch YouTube and be like, oh, what they talking about, how they going to affect the world, but we need platforms like this,
yes,
to plant that seed so it can begin to grow.
Absolutely, y'all. But let me move on. We got a page and a half, but that was well said, brother. I don't want you to think I didn't hear you. I just want to I see folks starting to drop off a little bit, so I want to make sure that we get through this last page and a half. So he says, Baba Amos Wilson says at the bottom, in any event, the civil rights of racial adjustment was destined from the outset to be non-economic. It says in a society, now listen to this. This is what Amos Wilson is saying. Dr. Amos Wilson is saying. He said in a society where the making of money, the eager search after profits, the entrepreneurial activity, the super exploitation of labor and natural resources, the ownership of land, the perfection of technology, the expansion of industry, and where the apotheosization of every financial scheme, I'm famous, y'all, for messing up a word, imaginable for individual enrichment, even organized crime was worshipped as the highest virtues transcending religion itself. The American Negro was being advised by white liberals and their black counterparts to waive any program of economic advancement as a matter of priorities. When it is realized that not a single European or even Asian immigrant, not even the most unfavored, was ever told that the land of opportunity held such restraints on his or her citizenship ambitions that the real economic relationship between native-born blacks and immigrant whites, he has in parentheses or brackets, Asian, Arabs, and etc., is better understood. So Dr. Amos Wilson closes this section with saying this. Can one of the brothers read this page? I want to close it all out.
What page is that?
Top of page 443, the assimilationist, integrationist, black bourgeois leadership.
All right, page 443, family. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Page 443, top paragraph. The assimilationist, integrationist, black bourgeoisie leadership, which essentially reduces all the racial, economic subordination and exploitation of African Americans to race discrimination in employment, public and private accommodations, vehemently expose the self-help economic ideologies of Booker T. Washington, Marcus Garvey, and those who precede and followed them, popularly known as Black nationalists. The Black bourgeoisie, apathy for Black nationalism. For those who support Black self-help, Black economics, self-control, aggressive Black entrepreneurship, Black identity, consciousness, and power is legendary. This leadership advances a fundamental and self-defeating abhorrence. It promotes Black identity and solidarity and support of its programs aimed at submerging and obliterating that very identity and solidarity while in the process of achieving complete racial assimilation into the white mainstream and bloodstream. To paraphrase Oliver Cox, the Black assimilation, social racial solidarity is not a virtue in itself. Consequently, an ideology of African American solidarity expressed as Black economic self-determination and Black power is an anathema to them. This, despite the obvious relationship between white economic self-sufficiency, political power, and well-being, as well as immigrant entrepreneurialism and immigrant well-being. The Black bourgeoisie social political leadership stupefied by its indiscriminate internalization of the white American ideology of individualism. We said that earlier. We moved from a we to an I. And according to Cruz, whose status is predicted on the very existence of the segregated urban ghettos. Okay, you want me to continue to read, System?
Yeah, I want you to close it out. Read the whole thing.
All right. Cruz further argues that all social policy aimed at internal economic, social, and cultural improvements in the ghettos on the assumption that such improvements amounted to the perpetration of segregation. Even though the contemporary kente cloth, Black bourgeoisie, political professional establishment may now faddishly, blatantly, and self-servantly give lip service to such improvements. Their inability or unwillingness to initiate, administer, and fund tangible, workable programs towards these ends, and their reactionary opposition to and underhanded sabotaging of such efforts when they have been proposed or led by Black nationalists or grassroots organizations, betray their true character and motives. Unless and until the Black community rids itself of its dominant assimilationist leadership, establishment, and institutes a race-conscious, race-first leadership, which will facilitate the acquisition of economic self-control and considerable ownership of America itself, it will continue to suffer relative powerlessness and perhaps in the near future, biological annihilation.
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 Damn.
Biological annihilation.
Bro,
What means?
Bro, you hear that? You hear that? He said, unless we rid ourselves of the dominant assimilationist leadership establishment and institute that. I mean, like, I actually have that underlined, brother. Like, I don't even want you to think I'm playing. Like, this is underlined in my book. You know, like, unless it says, unless and until the Black community rids itself of its dominant assimilationist leadership establishment and institutes a new race-conscious, race-first leadership, which will facilitate its acquisition of economic self-control and considerable ownership of America itself, it will continue to suffer relative powerlessness. Now, we know that powerlessness, and Dr. Amos Wilson breaks this down, and Brother Impool, you can bear witness to this, in the developmental psychology of the Black child. He talks about the psychological and emotional effects that powerlessness has on the African-American community. He was saying that powerless breeds a, he said you have he calls it low achievement motive. You have low achievement motive. You also have a high dependency mentality. And so he breaks that down in the developmental psychology of the Black child. So anyway, y'all, let's close out. Tell folks where to find you. Let's go really, really fast because we should have been out of here like 23 minutes ago. Tell folks where to find you. Let's go. Let's start with you, Sister Camille.
Find me at Camille Gaynor Jones at Facebook, Camille Gaynor Jones 3, at Real Drum At, And it's just been an honor to be here tonight. As every Sunday it is, the panel is awesome. And Ashe.
Ashe, sis.
Brother Chaos.
Next. Let's get it rolling, y'all. We got to get out of here. Next, somebody next.
Yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for the opportunity to come in and read tonight's session on chapter 17 on Blueprint and Black Power. And there's still more chapters to go in this wonderful big book. And this is a must read for every Black person, household, and child. And it breaks down everything that has led us to this point in the 21st century and beyond. And one thing I would say to Dr. Maat, I did saw a show you did with Salinetta. It was kind of good topic. Anything else? I got the different version from y'all. Y'all guys got the older version. I got the one in the age of Obama. It's the same book, but they say it was updated. But I think it's the same thing from all the books that.
Probably so. This might be another edition. You know, Brother Sababu. Shout out to Brother Sababu over at the African Info Systems. He's still editing and publishing the manuscripts of our great ancestor. I speak with him, you know, not frequently, but here and there. And there are a lot of manuscripts that Dr. Amos Wilson wrote. And so he's taking that stuff and he's putting it together and putting books out there. And I do plan on taking a trip to New York to see him and to meet up with Brother Sean McDonald up there. Because, yep, that's the newest book that's coming out. And he's also working on another book called The Psychology of Self-Hate. So Dr. Amos Wilson, he was a workaholic. And he wrote he has a lot of written material that Brother Sababu is trying to get out to us, that I have access to it whenever I want to come to New York to check it out. So I'm definitely going to make that trip to New York and sit with the elder and read through some of the manuscripts of, I might start crying looking at that man's original handwriting.
I know that's right.
You know, I might, you know, because that brother, that was one of the minds, man, that we had, you know, in the 20th century, because he made his transition in 1995. So anyway, but let's go. Knowledge Born. Knowledge Born, are you still there, brother?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, y'all can catch me on knowledgeuniversity.com. Y'all can also check out my show, www.blogtalkradio.com/Student Knowledge Radio. That's DOTHAKNOWLEDGERADIO. See everybody next week. Please, peace, love, Black power, Black prosperity, life, prosperity, and health.
Yes.
Take care, Knowledge.
Take care.
Brother Impu.
Hey, good people. Resurgence of the African mind is happening right here on this. I'm trying to keep my son from pulling out this chair. I apologize. But just wanted to, somebody had said at the opening, he had greeted the sisters. I can't remember who it was. You know, and I just want to reiterate that point to Dr. Maat and Sister Lele, and Sister Camille. You know, you sisters have been holding it down. And much respect to you all, and also obviously to our ancestors. Much respect to them. But continue doing what y'all doing. We us brothers, I'm sure they can back me up when I say this, that just to sit at y'all feet and hear our queens talk, with the wisdom and knowledge that you all have, we greatly appreciate it. But I can be found on Facebook. And also we have an Empowering Us Now, an Afrocentric study group on Wednesdays. Check out my Facebook page and they can get you information from there. Peace. And Black Power.
Oh man, brother, I appreciate your words. I appreciate your words, Brother Impu, and even Knowledge Born, what you guys said earlier. You say you elevate the woman, you elevate the nation.
That's right.
Hello. Brothers and sisters, once again, a wonderful discussion. Definitely enjoyed chapter 17. I'm happy that I was a part of this discussion tonight. Thank you for allowing me to put my input, and I hope to see everyone next week for chapter 18's discussion.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that. He said the benevolent fronts The benevolent fronts assault local and global African markets.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to this chapter, man. We're combing through, and I'm just proud of what we're doing and what we're building together. Brother Travis.
Peace, family. I was just reflecting on what you was talking about when Dr. Amos Wilson passed in '95. I was in the Nation of Islam then, and a friend of mine, Brother Mark, had a bookstore, and I got in. The first time I heard Dr. Amos Wilson was a tape he did, Blueprint for Black Power, a lecture. Blueprint for Black Power. That was before the book was published. He talked about how he was thinking about having it in 2 books, a volume 1 and volume 2. And Brother Sababa decided to put it in a whole volume. That's supposed to be actually 2 books, a volume 1 and volume 2. That's the initial idea of Dr. Amos Wilson. And then I was driving down the street. I remember and then the brother came up to me, Dr. Amos Wilson just passed. I mean, it's like my heart went in my stomach. I couldn't believe it, because we in the mosque, we would go down to Mark, because Mark had a lot of lecture tapes at his bookstore in North Carolina. He was another brother in the nation, had a Nation Islam bookstore, and we would just sit there and rewind that tape. That's when they were audio tapes. Then you had to have audio tape cassette, and we would just play that tape over and over and over again, because there was so much information in that lecture of Blueprint for Black Power. That was before even the book was complete. He talks about in that lecture. It's on YouTube. I saw the lecture on YouTube, but it's just amazing. His analysis. It just totally, you hear a lot of Black Power tapes. We listen to Black Power tapes, but Dr. Amos Wilson was something on another level, I tell you.
Yes, he was.
Absolutely. Have you ever had opportunity to meet him?
Never got a chance to meet him.
Wow.
Brother Sababa might not remember me, because after he passed, maybe a week later, I called down there. It was called Afro Info System or something like that. Was the name of the his publishing company. Most people don't know that Dr. Amos Wilson had a bookstore too.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, and so I called up there and I said when the book was going to be released, and he was trying to get funds together then. But I was happy to see that he got it published. I ran into the Blueprint for Black Power at the Shrine of Black Madonna. I moved back to Detroit. I was in Charlotte then. Moved back to Detroit, and I saw that book, Blueprint for Black Power, and I just vibrated that day. I instantly bought the book. I ran into the book. I was looking in the bookstore, and I saw that title, that big black book with that red, black, and green, said Blueprint for Black Power, and I just went numb. I said, I'm getting ready to get this baby. I sat up all night and was reading a lot of it. Yeah.
And brother Travis, you know what's crazy? When I spoke with I call him Brother Sababu. I break it syllables. Some people say Brother Sababu. When I spoke to him about the amount of resources that it took to write this book and to edit and to publish it, he was telling me that they spent, I think, about $500 or $600 grand. I know it was a few $100,000 worth of research went in this book, and then we complain about paying $40-something for the damn book. You get what I'm saying?
Yep,
but these others spent, and this is just the money. I'm not talking about the time it took to sit down, write it, edit it. You get what I'm saying? So it was more than money that went into this project. There was a lot of time, energy, and resources. And I think sometimes we, look at the price and we say, oh, it's, $40-something. I don't want to pay that. But the cost to make it was a few $100,000. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, I'm happy that Brother Sababu was able to get this out, because this book was published posthumously. Dr. Amos Wilson had transitioned 3 years before the
it was about 3 years. That's right. It was about 3 years after.
So very happy that he was able to get this manuscript to us. I believe that this is a book that should be in every African household, locally, nationally, and internationally. Everyone needs to have a copy of Blueprint for Black Power. All right. So folks, my name is Dr. Deanna Bailey, also known as Dr. Maat. You can find me on Facebook under my legal name, Deanna Bailey, or you can send me an email to dr.maat.msu @gmail.com. I am also the co-founder of Ed Anime Productions and the executive producer of the Meltrek series. What are your children watching? So we sit here, we talk all this Black Power stuff, right? but then we allow our babies to sit in front of a television and allow other people to put God knows what into their minds. Purchase Meltrek. Go to your search engine, type in Meltrek, MELTREK. Our website will pop up. We are trying to control the molding and shaping of our children's consciousness, and we're doing this through animation. Please support this wonderful project. Meltrek is a hip-hop animated series that teaches children Black history from a Black perspective, okay? Nobody's funding this project but Black folks, all right? I want to make that clear. It's us. It's a family business. We pulled our resources together. I'm talking about from the voices down to the storyboard, down to the scripting. You know, we did it all, minus the actual coding of the animation, which is done using Adobe Flash. We outsourced that to some brothers and sisters in the Philippines. Other than that, 90% of Meltrek is done right here in my home. Check it out, family.
Now available on DVD, the extraordinary educational hip-hop series created by the youth and for the youth. Meltrek, Episode 1, Exploring Ancient Africa. Join the adventure with Bunchie, Percy, Jesse, Jen, and Michelle as they travel back in time to explore the great kingdoms of Africa. Children will learn about the geography of Africa, its rulers, culture, great structures. They will uncover their greatness by realizing that we all come from great places.
Hi, my name is Anna Bailey Scrivener, an educator in the Baltimore City Public School System for over 35 years. And I am excited about Meltrek, and I do recommend it. Hello, I am Dr. Cynthia Neverdine Morton, a former professor of history at Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland. And I highly recommend Meltrek as an informative, engaging, and innovative way for youngsters to learn about their history.
Hi, my name is Charnay. I'm an educator with over 15 years of experience, and I recommend Meltrek.
So give your child the greatest gift of all, knowledge. Just visit our online shop at edanimateproductions.com to purchase your copy of Meltrek, Episode 1, available on DVD. Also available at our online shop, the Meltrek soundtrack for digital download only. Like us on Facebook, follow us also on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube at Ed Animated Productions to stay connected with us always. So join the adventure as we all recall that we all come from greatness, so we can be great.
Meltrek, 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 take it back, take it back, and talk about the Meltrek.
Oops, now available.
Didn't mean to do that again. All right, let me stop sharing my screen, family. Stop sharing my screen. So what is Dr. Maat trying to do? I'm trying to awaken the natural genius of the Black child using audio and visual. What else am I trying to do? Develop positive self-images.
Yes.
Discipline, right? Black child. So this is what Dr. Maat and her family is aspiring to do with the creation of Meltrek. That endeavor. See, we got to understand that, you know, we say that we value our babies, but we think we value them. If we truly value our children, we'll pay attention to what they watch. We'll pay attention to what they eat. We'll pay attention to how they're being, how and who is educating our babies. So we say we love our children, but do we really? When you sit down and you think about their diet, like let's sit down and think about your child's diet. What do you feed your child every day? What are they watching on television? Do they go to public school? Like, let's really think about that, okay? So anyway, please support the Meltrek project. Visit edanimateproductions.com to get your copy. Panel, before I let you guys go, I wanted to tell you that I got in touch with Nilly Fuller's camp, Dr. Nilly Fuller's camp. They just responded to me with an email. I spoke to his son, Mark, and I also spoke to Mr. Robert. At the bottom of the screen, you see Robert Gatewood. See that? Dr. Bailey, dear Dr. Bailey. Anyway, we'll have autographed copies of Dr. Nilly Fuller's book. T, what's the name of the book again? The Compensatory.
Unite Independent Compensatory Race and Right Supremacy. Independent.
Yeah, that's the book, boy.
So we'll have 10 autographed copies by Dr. Neely Fuller. And
already bought it.
Yeah, as many as you know, but I'm telling you, you know, to get an autographed copy, he's not doing lectures at all.
That's right.
So you won't catch him at a lecture to get a copy. He does his radio broadcast, I believe, every Wednesday, but you're not really going to catch Dr. Neely Fuller at a lecture signing books.
That's right.
So for them to provide me with 10 copies of autographed books, I think that is definitely phenomenal. All right. So
how do I get mine?
Oh, sis, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna place the order within the next few weeks. I'm gonna just see who wants to order it. I'm gonna put it out there. We only have 10 autographed copies, and I'm gonna be honest with you, sis. Out of the 10, I'm holding on to 2 because
I'll put one in there for me. I'm like, I've been planning on buying that book. So,
look, I like to mark up. I like to mark up my books, and so I always try to get 2 books. So, for example, I have 2 copies of Blueprint for Black Power. I have the one that I beat up, and then I had the one. Let me finish my thought. I had the one that I beat up, and then I have the one that's autographed and signed. So, out of those 10 copies, I'm letting you know that 2 are gonna go, and we'll have 8 left.
How much I need right now?
Yeah, I think it's the regular price that he sells them for, $29. What is it sold? What is it to you online?
Like same for $29.
Yeah, because
we're not trying to make a profit off of these books at all. Like it's just gonna go as is. Like I'm not. Whoever wants one can have one. It will just be autographed. I'm not trying to make any money. I just expect people to pay for the cost of the book and also the cost.
I have both books for Dr. Maat. To be fair, we talked about this, and I need one of those books. ASAP. I understand you kept one for yourself. We had a conversation about this, what I was planning to do, and you came off saying I'm gonna keep one. I'm gonna read, and one I'm gonna save. We've had this conversation.
Absolutely. You know I got you. You know I got you, bro. I got you.
Right, because he got the compensatory counter racist codified word guide also. That's a good one. Well. Yep. I got both of them.
Yeah.
Yes, that's my list. I'm gonna see who wants what. We're gonna divvy up the 10 books, and that's it. I can get more, but just when I reached out to the camp, it was crazy because his son called me, Mark, and I was telling him, I was like, look, we got a book club, and I want your father to sign, some copies, and he was kind of apprehensive about it, and so then he had his customer service rep, brother Robert Gatewood, call me up, and they said, well, sis, they wanted to know more about me. The family is very, they're very private, and they screen you. And so they wanted to know more about me. And when I told them, when I mentioned Meltrek, brother Towola, when I mentioned Meltrek, they said, oh, we know exactly who you are. They said, we know exactly. We heard of Meltrek, sister. We know exactly who you are. So now I get an email today saying, hey, I'll send you 10 copies of autographed copies of Neely Fuller's book. And so anyway, got a little connection with the family. I also been in touch with Baba Baruti via Facebook. And whenever we're ready to read his books, Iwa Pelly, he said he will sign it. He'll also get the Yoruba signed by Marimba Ani for us. So we can get copies. We'll get copies of those as well. And I said, as a perk of being a part of the book club, I want people to have, if the author is still living, I would like for the book to be, autographed, just as a perk.
Yeah, I'm gonna get autographed copy too.
Yeah. Absolutely, brother. All right. So with that said, family, please join us next Sunday at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to discuss Chapter 18 of Blueprint for Black Power. Please know and understand that you do not need the book to participate in the discussion. Just come through. Please share the video with your friends. Again, we're trying to bring about the resurgence, the rebirth, the resurrection of African consciousness, as Sister Alima would say, by reading one unit of work of our ancestors and elders at a time. Join us next week, same time. Thank you, panel members, for showing up. I loved having everybody on the panel. It hasn't been like this in quite a few weeks. So I just want to let you know that I appreciate your presence week after week. And I look forward to next week's discussion. All right. Peace and Black Power, family.